I stood on the wide wraparound deck of my Charleston beach home, watching pelicans slice through the sky before plunging into the glittering Atlantic. Dawn brushed the waves with liquid gold, and the ocean breeze tasted like salt and freedom. This place wasn't just property. It was peace earned, not given. I bought this home 5 years ago, paid for with the money I made running a thriving art gallery in the historic district. Every mortgage check, every late-night decision, every nail hammered and wall painted. It all came from me. My effort, my vision, my independence. The house itself was a coastal dream. 2 stories wrapped in weathered blue shutters, a tin roof that hummed during storms, hardwood floors I personally restored. Soft cream walls, a sunroom alive with plants and afternoon light, a master suite that opened to a balcony where I drank coffee like a ritual, 2 guest rooms upstairs ready for whoever I chose to invite, and marble counters in the kitchen I saved months to afford. This wasn't a house. It was my fortress. My proof, my future. My phone buzzed. A message from my sister. Vanessa. Coming to Charleston next week with Julian. Want to finally see the beach house? Been too long. I smiled, though that familiar knot formed in my chest. The one that always came with thinking about her. We were inseparable once, whispering secrets in our shared room back in Columbia, dreaming about big futures. But sometime in our 20s, cracks formed. Distance, pride, choices. She married Julian 3 years ago. A flashy real estate developer with a smile too practiced and a voice too loud. I stood at their Savannah wedding watching her glow while he made dramatic speeches about building legacies. Something about him always felt off. I never had proof, just instinct. I texted back, of course. When do you get in? Tuesday afternoon. Julian wants to see the property. Says beachfront real estate is always a smart investment. His wording bothered me. See the property, not visit you, but I shook off the unease. Vanessa was my sister. Sisters visit. Families reconnect. That's what we tell ourselves anyway. Tuesday came warm and postcard perfect. I spent hours preparing, cleaning, placing fresh flowers in vases, turning down the beds, cooking shrimp and grits because it was her favorite. When everything was spotless and glowing, I stepped back and smiled. Everything was ready. Welcoming, thoughtful, perfect to share. And I had no idea it would be the last time this house felt untouched by betrayal. The SUV rolled up at exactly 3:00 p.m., a massive black tank of a vehicle that looked ridiculous on the narrow beach road. Julian climbed out first, his belly fighting against a too-tight polo, mirrored sunglasses flashing like he owned the ocean. He didn't say a word to me. Instead, he paced the property like a shark scenting blood, tapping the siding, pushing against the deck rail, squatting to inspect the foundation like he was already measuring it for demolition. Then came Vanessa. Slimmer than when I last saw her, the sparkle in her eyes replaced with something clouded and uneasy. Daisy, she breathed, hugging me. Her perfume was expensive, sharp, but beneath it I smelled tension. The house is stunning. You've really built a dream. Thanks for coming, I told her softly, guiding them inside. Dinner on the deck tonight. Sunset views. Julian barely glanced at the cozy warmth I had poured my life into. His footsteps thudded over my carefully restored floors. He opened closets without asking, blasted the bathroom faucets, and even inspected the electrical panel like he was conducting an appraisal instead of visiting family. Solid structure, he grunted. Could use modernization, but solid bones. Vanessa gave a helpless smile. Julian doesn't turn off work mode. Real estate brain. I didn't know, but I let it slide and served dinner. The meal felt like sitting through a business pitch disguised as conversation. Julian bragged about properties he'd flipped, deals closed, ridiculous profits made. Charleston's market, rental values, cash flow, his voice never rested. You realize this place could pull in 15 grand weekly during summer? He smirked, waving his fork like he owned the ocean behind us. Maybe 20 in peak season. You're just sitting on free money, Daisy. I'm not renting it, I said calmly. This is my home. He laughed in a dry, dismissive sound. Home for one person? He scanned the wide deck, the sea view. Feels like a wasted asset. Vanessa touched his arm. She loves it here. Not everything is about profit. But something in Julian's eyes shifted. Cold, calculating, predatory. He looked at my home the way a vulture watches a dying animal. And right then, a chill rolled through me, like the air tightening before a storm breaks. I sensed danger. I just didn't know the lightning was aimed at me. I woke the next morning to Julian already storming up and down the beach outside, phone pressed tight to his ear. His voice carried through the glass, harsh, commanding, urgent. Vanessa sat silently at the kitchen island, staring into a mug she must have poured in the dark. "Everything okay?" I asked quietly. She flinched, then forced a tight smile. "Fine. Julian's just stressed about a deal in Atlanta." "He works too hard," she murmured, lifting her cup, but her hand shook faintly, and deep shadows clung beneath her eyes. I wanted to push, to bridge the strange distance between us, to ask what was really happening behind that polite mask, but the sliding door crashed open before I could speak. "Vanessa, pack up," Julian barked. "We're leaving. The Buckhead project needs attention. No explanation. No apology." Within an hour, they were gone, Julian barely throwing a goodbye over his shoulder, Vanessa clinging to me in a tight, trembling hug. "I'll call you soon," she whispered, voice breaking. "I swear." I watched the SUV crawl down the sandy road and disappear. Relief washed over me, but so did a heavy sadness, a quiet warning in my bones. Their visit had been wrong, uneasy, like a door had opened to something dark. 3 weeks drifted by. Vanessa texted sometimes, short, strained messages, always rushed. "Julian has me running everywhere, so much work, miss you, but no calls." No real explanation. No talk of visiting again. Just silence layered with exhaustion and something like fear. Then one hot Friday evening in late June, I pulled into my driveway and froze. The black SUV sat there. Julian stood on my deck with a man in a sharp suit and polished shoes. Vanessa sat motionless in the passenger seat, staring at nothing. A knot twisted deep in my stomach. I walked up quickly. "Julian, what is going on?" He turned, flashing that empty predator's smile. "Daisy, we need a quick chat. This is Bernard from Coastal Property Management. He's here to go over rental projections." My jaw tightened. "I already told you, I'm not renting my home. Why did you bring a property manager here without my consent?" Bernard shifted awkwardly, clutching his leather portfolio like a shield. Julian waved him off like swatting a fly, just exploring possibilities. "You're being emotional about an incredible income stream." "This isn't a business asset," I snapped. "It's my home." Julian's expression changed, sharp, steel cold. "Actually, we need to talk about that." The SUV door opened. Vanessa stepped out slowly, every movement heavy, like she was walking toward a firing squad. Her face was drained of color. Her eyes were swollen and raw. "Daisy," she whispered, voice trembling. I never wanted it to happen like this." "Happen like what?" My heart hammered. Instinct screamed. Something terrible was coming. Julian pulled a folded paper from his pocket like a magician revealing a final trick. "When your father died, he left the house in Columbia to you and Vanessa. Half each, yes?" My mouth dried. "Yes, we sold it. Split the money." "What does that have to do with anything?" Julian unfolded the document with calm cruelty. "Vanessa used her share as collateral for a business loan. In my name. The loan has clauses tied to joint marital assets," Julian continued, voice slick and controlled. "And since you are her only sibling, and the paperwork references family real estate holdings, this house falls under our financial umbrella." I stared at him, cold disbelief flooding my veins. "That's ridiculous. This property has zero connection to your loan. I bought it years before you even existed in our lives." He shoved a stack of documents toward me. "Read them." "My attorneys already have. There's precedent. This home can be categorized as part of the extended family asset pool backing the collateral." My breath caught. "You're bluffing." I turned to Vanessa, desperate, furious, shaking. "Tell me he's lying." Her face crumpled. Tears streamed like she was breaking from the inside out. I signed the forms. "I didn't know. He told me it was routine paperwork." "I swear I didn't know he would destroy me." Bernard shifted uneasily, clearing his throat. "Mr. Julian asked me to prepare rental contracts beginning July 15th. But I can step outside." "No," Julian snapped. "This is business." His eyes bored into mine, ice-cold greed. "You can stay through summer if you pay market rent. After that, we evaluate occupancy." The air punched out of my lungs. The world reeled. "Get out," he blinked. "What?" "Out of my home. Now. Before I call the police." Julian's jaw tightened. You don't want this to get ugly. I have lawyers. I have filings. You run a boutique gallery. You don't have the resources to fight this. Vanessa broke down completely. Julian, please, this isn't what you said you'd do. You told me you just wanted to talk to her. The situation, he said, voice hard as steel, is that your sister is occupying property that legally falls into our household assets. She can cooperate or we'll formalize it in court. I lifted my phone, fingers trembling. I'm calling the police. He smirked. Tell them your brother-in-law is discussing lawful asset claims. See if they rush over. I dialed. But before I could hit call, Julian ripped the phone from my hand and hurled it off the deck. We watched it tumble, glint once in the sunlight and vanish in the sand below. Then he stepped toward me, lowering his voice to something slow, venomous. You need to understand something. I control profitable properties in 3 states, Julian sneered. I have influence. I have capital. You're drowning in a mortgage and running a gallery that barely pays its bills. This house is worth at least $800,000. Be realistic. Do you actually think you're keeping it? The next hour dissolved into a waking nightmare. Julian kept circling me, switching between bogus legal talk and outright threats. Bernard eventually excused himself, face pale, clearly wanting no part of the madness. Vanessa begged Julian to leave, voice trembling, but he treated her like a ghost. Neighbors drifted onto their porches, drawn by his booming voice. Julian flashed a charming smile at them and waved casually. Family chat, he called cheerfully. Nothing serious. Meanwhile, my heartbeat hammered in my ears. Rage, violation, disbelief. This was my sanctuary, my peace, and this vulture was trying to rip it away with intimidation and forged authority. When twilight began to bleed across the sky, Julian issued his final blow. You have until Sunday. Sign the documents acknowledging joint ownership and agreeing to our rental terms, or we file the legal claim first thing Monday. Your move. Then he snapped, Vanessa, car. She reached toward me, voice breaking. Daisy, I swear I'll fix this. Now, Julian barked, her face crumpled. Shoulders folded, she obeyed. I watched their SUV roll away, my entire body shaking, fury and fear like acid in my veins. I retrieved my phone from the sand, the screen cracked, but working, and dialed the one person I trusted, Patricia, a paralegal in Charleston. Can someone take your property through a sibling's loan? I blurted, What? She snapped. No, absolutely not. That's not how property law works. Who fed you that garbage? In chopped, breathless pieces, I told her everything. She listened, and then her voice dropped, deadly serious. Daisy, that's attempted fraud. He's trying to terrify you into signing because only your signature could give him any rights. Do not sign. Do not verbally agree. I'm sending you a real estate attorney's number right now. I spent the night gathering ammunition. I wrote down every threat, every word, every detail. I took pictures, pulled out my deed, mortgage statements, payment records, proof of every dollar I had poured into this home. I would not lose everything I built. Not to him. Not ever. Saturday morning, I woke to another gut punch. An envelope was taped to my door, filled with official-looking papers labeled Joint Family Asset Agreement, blank lines waiting for my signature, a trap disguised as legality. And now, I knew exactly what game he was playing. The paperwork was intentionally thick with legal jargon, a maze designed to intimidate. Patricia walked me through it on speaker, her tone sharp with disgust. This is absolute nonsense, she snapped. Completely unenforceable. But if you sign it, he'll drag you through months of litigation and drain you dry. He's gambling you'll fold to avoid the fight. I'm not signing anything, I said through clenched teeth. Good, then listen. I asked my supervising attorney about your case. From this point forward, document everything. South Carolina is a one-party consent state. You can legally record without telling him. If he shows up again, call the police immediately. Report harassment. Report trespassing. A fragile calm settled over me. I had a plan, barely, but my stomach still felt like a clenched fist. Julian had wealth, arrogance, and no moral breaks. I had fury, legal truth, and a paralegal friend. Would that be enough against someone who thought the law bent for him? Sunday crawled by. Every small noise made my pulse spike. I hovered near windows, expecting headlights at any moment. As twilight deepened, I dared to hope. Maybe Vanessa convinced him. Maybe he realized I wouldn't break. Maybe this nightmare was losing steam. Then at 8:00 p.m., engines rumbled in my driveway. Not one, several. I looked out and froze. The black SUV, a full moving truck. 2 broad-shouldered men in work boots. Vanessa sat motionless in the passenger seat, face buried in her hands. Julian marched up my stairs and slammed his fist on my front door. "Daisy, open up." "We're moving in." I backed away and locked the deadbolt again, even though it was already locked. "You don't live here," I shouted. "This is trespassing. And I told you that." He yelled louder, voice echoing across the beach houses. "This property belongs to our household now. Since you wouldn't sign, we're taking possession." "We have every legal right," the movers began, unloading cardboard boxes stacked onto my deck. Furniture, wrapped in blankets, my sanctuary turning into a crime scene. I dialed 911 with shaking fingers. "Charleston Police, what's your emergency?" "Someone is attempting to force their way into my home," I whispered. "My brother-in-law is trying to move in and claim my property. Please send officers." She took my address, voice calm and firm. "Units are en route. Stay on the line." Julian jiggled the doorknob, marched to the back patio, tested the sliding doors. When everything resisted him, fury twisted his face. "Come out here, Daisy. Stop playing games. This house is ours now." One mover hesitated, murmured something. Julian flashed cash. The hesitation died. They kept unloading. I filmed everything, my camera capturing Julian's tirade. The men hauling couches, Vanessa crumpled in the SUV, shaking with silent sobs. Proof, power, leverage, and for the first time since this ordeal began, I felt the spark of a fire building. Not fear, not panic, righteous fury. I swallowed hard. My anger burned, but guilt twisted in my chest too. Vanessa looked like she was breaking apart in that SUV, caught between the monster she married and the sister he tried to destroy. I just want him gone," I finally said. "I want him barred from returning." The female officer nodded. "Copy that. Sir, you are being formally warned. If you step foot on this property again without the owner's consent, you will be arrested." Julian's jaw clenched so tightly I could hear his teeth grind. "This is not over," he hissed. The officer stepped closer until she was inches from him. "Sir?" "Step away from the door. Now." For a moment, I thought he might lunge, at her, at me, at the world for daring to say no to him. But instead, he yanked off his designer sunglasses, threw them into the sand like a child throwing a tantrum, and stormed toward his SUV. Vanessa opened her door just a crack as he passed. "Julian, please," he didn't even look at her. "Get in the car." She flinched like she'd been slapped. Slowly, she slid back inside and the SUV rolled out of the driveway. The moving truck followed behind, silent as a funeral procession. When the taillights disappeared into the dusk, my knees buckled. The adrenaline finally drained and cold reality hit me like a wave. My own sister had signed away paperwork that could have stolen my home, not out of malice. Not jealousy, out of trust. Trust in a man who treated marriage like ownership and family like collateral. The younger officer cleared his throat gently. "Ma'am, you're safe tonight. But lock your doors. Men like that, they don't take humiliation well." I nodded weakly. "Thank you." They left. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. Just the ocean, the last strip of sunset, and me standing alone on my porch, holding a life that someone had almost ripped away. But I wasn't scared anymore. Not really. Because now this wasn't just harassment, it was war, and I don't lose what's mine. She was trapped in his web just as much as I had been dragged into this mess. Another casualty of his obsession with power and control. I swallowed hard, anger and heartbreak twisting inside me. "I just want him gone," I said. "Gone and never coming back. If he steps foot near me or this house again, I will press charges." The officers stood by, stone-faced, while the movers hauled every last box back into the truck. Julian ranted the entire time, waving his arms, threatening lawsuits, demanding badge numbers like he thought the world bowed to him. The female officer didn't flinch. "Sir," she said sharply, "if you do not cooperate, you will be arrested for trespassing and disorderly conduct." "Your choice," his jaw clenched. He wasn't in control anymore, and he hated it. As the final box disappeared into the truck, he turned toward me, No charm left, just pure venom. This isn't over, he hissed. You just made a very expensive mistake. Sir, leave. Now, the officer snapped. The moving truck rolled out first. Then the SUV lurched forward, tires spitting sand as Julian sped away. Vanessa stared straight ahead. She never looked back. When they were gone, the female officer approached me, her voice softer now. Ma'am, get a restraining order. That man isn't finished. Men like him rarely are. They think they're owed what they never earned. Document everything. Stay alert. I nodded, but inside, the shaking hadn't stopped. Fear, adrenaline, disbelief, all crashing inside me like the waves only feet away. As the patrol cars disappeared down the beach road, I sank into a chair on the deck. Night swallowed the coast. Moonlight shimmered on the water and the ocean roared like a distant war drum. My hands trembled. My pulse hammered, but under all of it, something stronger rose. Resolve. Julian truly believed I was weak, that being alone made me easy to break. He expected me to fold, to hand over my life just to avoid a fight. He didn't realize he'd chosen the wrong woman. Monday morning, I walked into the office of the attorney Patricia recommended, Helen, a specialist in real estate fraud and high-pressure intimidation cases. I carried every document, screenshot, voicemail, and police record I had collected over the past weeks. She studied everything, expression tightening with each page. This, she said at last, tapping the fake contract, is blatant harassment and attempted property fraud. There is no legal avenue through which your sister's loan could give him rights to your home. He fabricated this entire scheme hoping you wouldn't know better. My chest loosened for the first time in days. What happens now? We go on offense, restraining order, cease and desist to him and any attorney foolish enough to represent him. And if he pushes this any further, we file criminal charges. A slow breath escaped me. Relief, fierce and shaking. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt the ground steady beneath me. He thought he was hunting me. He thought I had no power. He had no idea what was coming. How much is this going to cost? I asked, bracing myself. Helen quoted a number that punched the air right out of my lungs. My vision wavered. Fear, stress, exhaustion hitting all at once. She noticed. I'll work with you on payment, she said gently. And if we push this hard enough, there's a very real chance we can recover legal fees from him as damages. Men like Julian thrive because most people are too scared or too broke to fight back. When someone does stand up to them, they tend to crumble fast. Hope flickered, small, but real. Over the next week, Helen moved with the precision of someone who had slayed men like Julian before. The restraining order, approved. Julian was now legally banned from contacting me or stepping within 500 feet of my home. A cease and desist letter went straight to his business address in Atlanta, and copies were sent to every attorney whose name he falsely used in his forged documents. The net was closing around him. Then came the call I didn't know whether to fear or welcome. Daisy, Helen said, voice low and controlled, we found something during the asset search. You need to sit down. My heart jolted. What is it? Julian is drowning financially. 2 properties in foreclosure. Contractors suing him. Investors accusing him of fraud. He's collapsing. Fast. A cold realization spread through me. He wanted my house to bail himself out, I whispered. Yes, Helen confirmed. He wasn't trying to join your property. He was trying to steal it and flip it to save himself. My stomach turned. The pieces fell into place. His arrogance, his obsession, his desperation masked as confidence. And one more thing, Helen added. I reached out to your sister and privately. When I explained the situation, she asked to meet. She says she has information that could help you. 2 days later, we met Vanessa in a quiet Charleston coffee shop. Neutral ground, away from the beach, away from Julian's shadow. She walked in looking like someone who hadn't slept in months. Shoulders slumped, clothes loose, eyes hollow. The sparkle she used to have was gone, ground down by the man she married. The moment she saw me, she broke. She wrapped her arms around me, clinging like a drowning person who had finally found land. I'm sorry, she choked. I'm so sorry. We slid into a corner booth. Helen opened her notebook. Vanessa, she said gently, Anything you share here is confidential. Daisy isn't here to punish you. She wants the truth. How did Julian get you to sign a loan document using family property references? Vanessa's fingers shook around her coffee cup. Her voice trembled. It started about 6 months after the wedding. His business was already failing. But he lied. Said big deals were coming. Said everything was on the verge of exploding in success. Then he started asking about family money, about our parents' inheritance, about Daisy's beach house. Her eyes filled with tears. He fixated on it. Obsessed. He told me we needed to leverage family assets for growth, that it was smart business. I didn't know he planned to take it from you. Her hands covered her face. Shame, fear, regret. And in that moment, I realized she hadn't been a partner in his scheme. She had been his prisoner, and now she was ready to help me burn his empire to ash. Did he ask you to contact Daisy about the house? Helen asked. Vanessa shook her head, wiping tears. Not at first. He just talked about it constantly. How oceanfront property is wasted on someone who isn't using it for profit. How Daisy didn't understand investment. How family assets should support family success. Her voice cracked. At first, I thought he was just thinking out loud. Then 4 months ago, he brought home papers for me to sign. He said they were standard banking forms, that lenders require information on all family assets, even if they aren't collateral. Helen's pen paused. Did you read the documents? Before signing? Vanessa swallowed hard, tears spilling again. I tried. But the language... It was legal jargon. I didn't understand it. And he kept rushing me, telling me we'd lose the loan opportunity if I didn't sign immediately. He kept saying it wouldn't affect Daisy, that it was routine. I trusted him. I thought I was helping our marriage. What happened after you signed? I asked softly. Something hollow passed behind her eyes. He changed. He became obsessed with Daisy's house. He said we had to see it again. For evaluation. When we visited, he took photos, measured rooms, talked to rental agents. I felt sick. I could feel something was wrong, but I didn't know how to stop it. Her voice trembled harder. When we got home, I found copies of the documents in his office, and I finally read them. Really read them, and I realized it wasn't disclosure. It implied that family properties could be used as shared collateral, even if the owners didn't sign. My heart punched the inside of my chest. Helen leaned in, voice sharp but calm. So he built paperwork to pretend Daisy agreed to secure his debts? Yes, Vanessa whispered. He engineered everything. The visit, the paperwork, the threats, all planned to make it look like Daisy was legally tied to his financial mess. My blood ran cold. And I helped him, Vanessa sobbed. I signed without understanding. I let him use me to trap my sister. I am so sorry. Helen's voice was gentle but iron strong. Vanessa, are you willing to testify? To give us those documents and explain exactly how he manipulated you? Vanessa sat up straighter, shaky but resolute. Yes, I'll do whatever it takes. I already filed for divorce. I'm done living under him. I needed to know Daisy was safe first. We talked for over an hour. Vanessa detailed everything. His failing properties, the unpaid contractors, the lawsuits, the loan defaults. Piece by piece, Julian's empire wasn't just cracking, it was collapsing. And now he wasn't facing just legal consequences. He was about to face both of us. She told us everything. How Julian tightened control slowly. First finances, then her social life, then her voice. How questioning him led to verbal attacks. How she stopped recognizing the man she married, if he had ever existed at all. By the time she finished, Vanessa wasn't just trembling. She looked like someone waking up from a long nightmare and realizing the monster was real. Helen closed her notebook, calm but fierce. This is invaluable, she said. With your testimony and those documents, we won't just defend Daisy's property. We'll build a criminal case. Fraud, coercion, attempted property theft. There are multiple charges here. Vanessa's voice cracked. Will he go to jail? Possibly, Helen replied. At minimum, we'll cripple his ability to hurt anyone else financially and legally. Vanessa nodded, broken, but determined. She left the cafe with tears drying on her cheeks, but she walked taller than when she arrived. After she left, Helen and I stepped outside. The Charleston harbor glimmered in the afternoon sun, tourists laughed nearby, horse carriages clopped down the street, but none of it touched me. Everything looked normal. Nothing felt normal. My sister had been manipulated, my home had been targeted, and somewhere out there Julian was still moving like a cornered animal, unpredictable and dangerous. "What now?" I asked, staring at the water. Helen folded her arms, eyes hard. "Now we go on offense. We take everything to the DA, file criminal complaints, and expose every fake document he ever waved around. He tried to steal your home and weaponize your sister. We don't just defend, we strike back." A chill slid down my spine. And Julian? If he's smart, he'll cut his losses and disappear. But cornered men make reckless decisions. So, security cameras, new locks, stay aware of your routine. Fear is natural, but preparation is power. Her words steadied me, a little. That night, my sanctuary betrayed me. Every creak felt like footsteps. Every gust of wind sounded like a voice. My house, my dream, my peace, suddenly felt vulnerable. At 1 a.m., I grabbed a bag and my keys with shaking hands. I called Teresa, who owned a cozy little bed and breakfast downtown. "Can I stay a few nights?" I whispered. She didn't ask questions. "Of course. Come now. Room's ready." Minutes later, I watched my beach house fade in my rearview mirror, swallowed by night. I had built that home with pride, but tonight, I was fleeing it. Not because Julian had won, but because I needed strength for what came next. Because the thing about being cornered is, sometimes it awakens the part of you that fights harder than ever before. For the first time since I bought the place, I felt like a refugee in my own life. Julian hadn't only stolen my roof, he'd stolen the quiet nights, the small rituals, the certainty that this was mine. Even if we won in court, even if he landed in prison, could I ever sit on that deck and feel safe again? On Monday, Helen filed the formal complaint. She had spent the weekend methodically assembling our case, contracts, texts, bank records, witness statements, until it was a lock. The district attorney opened an investigation, and within days Julian was officially notified he was under criminal scrutiny. His reaction was volcanic. Despite the restraining order, his number lit my phone 17 times in a single afternoon. The messages turned from bluster to menace. "You have no idea what you've started. I will ruin you. I will take everything. You'll regret this." Helen told me to save every file, and we lodged another report for violating the order. Then he made his fatal move. On Wednesday night, Julian drove back to Charleston, alone, and came to the beach house. He didn't know I'd left for Teresa's B&B. He didn't know I'd bolted on cameras the week before. He didn't know I had already prepared for him. My phone pinged, motion detected. I opened the live feed and watched his SUV nose into my driveway at 9 p.m. He stalked the property, testing doors and peering in windows, hands cupped to glass like a thief reading the menu. Then he picked up a decorative garden rock and smashed my kitchen window. The alarm screamed. I was already on the phone with 911. "A man with a restraining order just broke into my home. I have video." This time the response was immediate. 4 patrol cars converged. Officers burst in with weapons drawn and found him amid shards of glass, clutching my laptop. He was booked on breaking and entering, burglary, violating a restraining order, and attempted theft, charges that could mean years behind bars. As they cuffed him, he screamed at the security camera, teeth bared. "This isn't over, Daisy, you hear me?" "Not over." Helen called half an hour later, her voice steady with grim satisfaction. "He just guaranteed himself a felony conviction. Between the video, the prior reports, and the restraining order breaches, he's looking at serious time." The district attorney was going in hard. There would be no quiet deal, no graceful exit. Julian's life, the shiny image he built from lies and intimidation, was crumbling, and there was no saving it. After the police cleared the scene, I drove back to the beach house. A contractor Helen arranged had already sealed the shattered window with plywood. The rest of the house stood untouched, but the air felt polluted, as if the walls themselves remembered his rage. I moved slowly from room to room, reclaiming each space with my presence. This is mine. This is safe. This is home. I repeated the words until I believed them again. In the weeks that followed, the full scope of his scheme came to light. Investigators uncovered similar attempts with two other relatives of business partners. Documents pushed under emotional pressure, false signatures, fabricated ownership claims. He'd faked bank forms, lied to investors, manipulated valuations and rental income. His empire wasn't business, it was a web of deceit. And now every thread was snapping. Vanessa moved to Colombia with our aunt while her divorce moved forward. She called often, her voice shaking with guilt, begging for forgiveness. He groomed you, I told her gently. He preyed on trust. You're not to blame. We get through this side by side. The trial date landed in October. Helen predicted Julian wouldn't dare put himself before a jury. Not with evidence that airtight. He'll take a plea, she said. Expect 2 to 4 years. Maybe more if any new charges surface. His licenses are gone. His companies will be dismantled. Restitution, debts, legal fallout, he'll be left with nothing. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt hollow. The months of fear, court filings, police calls, they had eaten pieces of me. I had lost sleep, weight, laughter, normalcy. Even the gallery struggled while I fought to protect my life. And the beach house, my sanctuary, felt bruised by his intrusion. Some nights I'd stand in silence wondering if peace could ever return. But from those ruins, something unexpected rose. Strength. A spine I never knew I had. I had looked a bully in the eye and refused to bow. He tried to strip away my security. Instead, he exposed my resilience. I wasn't fragile. I wasn't weak. I was not a victim. He underestimated the wrong woman. Late September, Helen called. Her tone held finality and victory. He accepted the plea. 4 years in prison, 5 years probation, all licenses permanently revoked, full restitution including your legal costs. And the judge granted a lifetime restraining order. He can never come near you again. It's finished, Daisy. Completely finished. I stepped onto my deck that evening as the Atlantic shimmered under the setting sun. Pelicans dove. Waves rolled in, steady and eternal. For the first time in months, the world didn't feel dangerous. It felt mine again. The salt air filled my lungs like a reminder from the universe. I survived. My house stood around me, solid, silent, and mine. Julian was gone, swallowed by the consequences he thought he was too clever to ever face. Vanessa was rebuilding, and this time she had me beside her. Not as a victim, but as someone finally free. Freedom, though. It wasn't soft. It had edges. It taught me that safety isn't guaranteed, trust isn't always earned, and evil doesn't always come wearing a villain's mask. Sometimes it smiles, sometimes it calls itself family. Strength wasn't something I discovered. It was something I chose every single day, even when fear sat heavy in my chest. Justice wasn't given. I had to drag it into the light with grit and paperwork and steel-spined determination. Home wasn't just a place. It was something I had defended, brick by brick, against someone who believed intimidation could break me. I poured a glass of wine and lifted it to the night sky. Not a toast to winning, but to surviving, to holding my ground when storm winds tried to tear me apart. The house still stood, and so did I. That was victory enough. 3 weeks later, I slept. Really slept. No dread clawing at my ribs, no jolting awake at shadows. The sunrise painted gold across my walls, and for the first time, the quiet didn't feel threatening. It felt earned. The house felt like mine again, no trace of the poison Julian tried to pour into it. October became my month of repair. I returned to my gallery, my artists, my life, the life I had built with honesty while Julian built his with lies. I curated a new exhibition, breathed creative air again, let color and light wash the last pieces of fear from me. Customers noticed the spark returning, but I said nothing. Some battles happen in silence, and so do some victories. Vanessa's divorce moved quickly. The law doesn't waste time when a man has already destroyed himself. His assets? Gone. His properties? Auctioned. His accounts? Emptied. Everything he schemed for, manipulated for, lied for. Ashes. Vanessa walked away with nothing financial, but everything emotional, freedom, clarity, strength. Money can be earned again. Sanity can't. She told me therapy helped her see the truth. Julian hadn't been a husband. He'd been a puppeteer. Isolation, control, rush signatures, confidence stripped thread by thread. I thought I was losing my mind, she whispered once. He made me feel small, helpless, like I needed him to breathe. No, I told her. You survived him. You escaped. You didn't break and you woke up. Survivors don't crumble. They rise. And we did. Both of us. That takes incredible courage, Helen had told me. I didn't feel courageous, just awake, finally aware of the world's sharp edges. In November, she called again. This time her voice wasn't triumphant. It was grave, the kind of tone that freezes blood before you even hear the words. Daisy. New information surfaced. You need to prepare yourself, I braced. What now? The investigation uncovered surveillance. Months of it. Julian didn't just show up at your house, he studied you. He tracked your movements, photographed your routines, monitored when you were home, when you were alone. He hired a private investigator specifically to follow you. My stomach dropped. Silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. He planned this long before the day he stepped onto your deck, she continued. This wasn't desperation. It was strategy. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. How long? I finally forced out. Approximately 6 months. Maybe longer. The PI kept meticulous logs, timestamps, locations, descriptions. He recorded Julian's instructions. All of it is being turned over to prosecutors. Every friendly smile Julian had ever given me. Every casual comment he'd made about my home. The first family visit with Vanessa. None of it was random. It was scouting. He hadn't just wanted my home. He had stalked me to take it. He saw you as vulnerable, Helen said quietly. A woman alone on the coast. Easy to isolate? Easy to intimidate. But the private investigator flipped. He's cooperating fully in exchange for immunity, so he walks away? My voice shook with disgust. Legally, yes. But his records prove this was premeditated. The DA may add stalking charges. Julian could serve even longer. I hung up and sat in the silence of my living room, a house that suddenly felt like a crime scene all over again. Later that night, I watched the break-in footage again. Julian didn't wander. He moved with confidence, like someone walking through a place he already owned. He checked the exact windows most homeowners forget to latch. He went straight to the drawers where electronics were stored. He knew the blind spots in the yard lights. He hadn't been improvising. He had been executing. The realization was a colder shock than the ocean in winter. He thought studying me meant he owned me. He thought knowing my schedule meant controlling my destiny. He thought that because he marked my life like a blueprint, he could erase me from it. But he forgot something fatal. Knowledge isn't power, execution is. And he had never counted on my ability to fight back. His arrogance had built a cage, and he was the one locked inside it now. December arrived like a tide shift, quiet at first, but carrying the promise of something new. An unexpected opportunity, and the first real glimmer that life after war might not just exist. It might even be beautiful again. The private investigator, Owen, the same man who could barely lift his eyes every time he appeared in court, suddenly reached out through Helen. He wanted a meeting. He wants to apologize face to face, Helen said. You don't owe him anything. He violated your privacy, even if he's pretending to cooperate now. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. So I agreed. We met in a neutral spot, a quiet bench by the harbor, cold wind rolling off the water. He looked younger than I imagined, maybe 30, forgettable face, nervous fingers twisting together like he wished he could disappear. He didn't bother with small talk. I'm sorry, he blurted immediately. What I did was wrong. I knew it was wrong, but I needed the money. I convinced myself it was just information gathering. Nothing personal. I never thought about what it feels like to be watched. I stared at him. Why did you help Julian? He paid well. Told me it was legitimate, a property dispute, legal documentation. By the time I realized he was planning something criminal, I was already knee-deep. And scared. So I documented everything, every instruction, every photo. Insurance, in case things fell apart. And they did, he swallowed hard. When I heard about the break-in, I couldn't live with that. I handed everything to police. Notes, surveillance photos, every order Julian gave me. I wanted to help put him away. I searched his face for sincerity, for guilt, for anything real. He looked genuinely shaken, but I had learned something the hard way. Guilt can be performed. You watched me for months, I said quietly. You helped him plan an attack on my home, on my life. An apology doesn't erase that. I know, he whispered. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know I regret it, and I'm doing everything to make sure Julian pays for what he did. My testimony will keep him behind bars longer. That's all I can offer. I walked away unsettled. His cooperation made the case stronger, but he had still been part of invading my life, feeding a predator every detail he needed. Justice wasn't clean. It was messy, uncomfortable, full of deals with people you wished you never had to look at again. The trial pushed through the holidays. And Julian? He showed no remorse. Standing before the judge, he still claimed innocence. Insisted the property claim was real. Swore everyone was conspiring. Against a brilliant businessman, arrogance. Dripped from every word, the same. Arrogance that put him behind bars in the first place. The judge didn't buy a single word of Julian's. Arrogance. You orchestrated a calculated scheme to steal your wife's sister's home, the judge said, voice sharp as steel. You forged legal documents, fabricated claims, hired people to stalk her, and when manipulation failed, you broke into her home intending to take what was never yours. You show no remorse, no insight into the harm you caused, and no guarantee you wouldn't attempt this again. You are a danger to the people around you. And then came the blow. 6 years in prison, plus additional time for stalking, followed by a decade of strict probation. Julian's jaw stayed tight, his face emotionless, but I saw his fists curl, the only crack in his mask. He was escorted out without glancing at a single soul. January arrived with a strange quiet, a new kind of stillness. Julian was gone, not just physically but legally, permanently cut from my life. The restraining order was now permanent, the criminal case closed. No more courthouse halls, no more sleepless nights waiting for the next move. For the first time in months. Peace, earned, fragile, precious. In February, I turned 36. We celebrated on my deck. Vanessa, a few close friends, champagne fizzing under the warm glow of an Atlantic sunset. Vanessa handed me a framed sunrise photo of the beach house, golden light spilling over the roof like armor. This is to remind you, she said softly. You won. This home will always be yours. Spring came like a rebirth. I threw myself into the gallery, curating 3 major exhibits, each one bigger than the last. Crowds grew, my name spread through Charleston's art circles, and I eventually hired an assistant as the workload surged. Without Julian's poison lurking in the background, my life blossomed again, fuller, brighter, sturdier, but trauma leaves fingerprints. Security cameras stayed, the alarm was always armed, doors locked, even in daylight. I varied my daily routine like clockwork. Unpredictability became its own kind of defense. I trusted slower, observed faster, spotted manipulation in seconds. In April, Vanessa noticed. You've changed, she said quietly. Harder, but stronger. Safety isn't a gift, I replied. It's something you build. I won't ever be blindsided again. She nodded, eyes reflecting the same hard-earned wisdom. I get it. I question everything now. Every choice, every person, every signature. Maybe that's survival, not paranoia. We spent that weekend talking, not like 2 women recovering from chaos, but like warriors comparing scars. Everything we lost, everything we fought for. Everything we learned about danger, about trust, about strength. We survived, and survival had reshaped us. Vanessa had begun taking business classes at the community college, determined to decode finance, legalese, and contracts, so no one could ever manipulate her again. She had reached out to old friends Julian had driven away, rebuilding a life on her own terms, strong, independent, unbroken. Watching her grow, I felt a swell of pride for her resilience. Do you ever think about him? She asked one quiet Sunday morning as we sipped coffee on the deck, sunlight glinting off the waves. Sometimes, I admitted. But not nearly as often as before. Mostly I replay how close I came to losing everything because I wasn't ready to defend it. That scares me far more than Julian ever could, she nodded. He is gone. 6 years is a long time? Yes, but not forever. One day he'll be out, and men like him never forget. My chest tightened at the thought. I need to be ready if he ever tries again. Vanessa set her cup down decisively. He won't get the chance. I've spoken with his parole officer through the divorce proceedings. One violation, one phone call to you, one drive past your house, one attempt at contact. And he goes back in immediately. Done. He's painfully aware now that knowledge alone doesn't equal control. He may have known breaking into your home was illegal, but he gambled anyway. True, I said. But he also knows I will fight back now. I'm not the easy target he assumed. That changes everything. I wanted desperately to believe her, to finally trust that the nightmare had ended. Yet a fragment of me remained vigilant, always alert, scanning for the next shadow, the next threat. Julian had stolen my innocence, my belief that family meant safety, that home was a sanctuary. No restitution, no prison sentence could return that. Summer came, warm and blinding, with tourists crowding the beaches, gallery openings buzzing, and long golden evenings stretching endlessly. I dipped my toes back into dating, carefully, cautiously, learning again to trust. None of the relationships went anywhere serious, and that was fine. I needed space to rediscover who I was, beyond crisis, beyond survival. By August, Helen called with the final tally on Julian's finances. All remaining assets have been liquidated to pay restitution and legal fees. About $18,000 remains, and it's being divided among his victims. Your share is $6,500, I raised an eyebrow. Not much considering the storm we went through. Think of it as extra, Helen said. Put it toward your legal bills. We already recovered your full fees in the restitution order. This is purely compensation for damages beyond the courtroom. A small, almost ironic victory. Money could never repay what we endured. But it was a tangible marker of justice, a reminder that survival came with reward, however modest. Use it for something that brings you joy. I used mine to renovate the kitchen, replacing the shattered window Julian had thrown through and upgrading the appliances. Every time I cooked now, the space felt alive with transformation. Proof that broken things could be mended, that damage could turn into beauty, that endings could shift into new beginnings. In September, Vanessa finished her business courses and landed a job at an accounting firm in Colombia. I could hear her exhilaration through the phone. They hired me. I start next week. Bookkeeping and learning tax prep. It's not glamorous, but it's mine. I earned it. Oh, Vanessa, I am so proud of you, I said. You did this because you refused to stay a victim. You believed in yourself because you allowed yourself to fight back. You showed me that fighting back was possible. Thank you for letting me be part of your journey. After we hung up, I stood on the deck, watching pelicans arc and dive into the endless blue of the ocean. Powerful, wild, beautiful, sometimes dangerous. Living beside it meant respecting its might while soaking in its grace. Life worked the same way. Threats lurked, storms appeared without warning, and people could hurt you if given the chance. But there was also joy, peace, and beauty worth guarding fiercely. Julian had tried to steal my home, my sanctuary, my sense of security. He had failed. Not because I was stronger, but because I refused to yield. That refusal had cost me sleepless nights, money, and emotional peace. Yet it had given me something priceless. Proof that I could survive the worst anyone could throw at me and emerge whole, unbroken, even wiser. As fall arrived, one final chapter unfolded. Owen, the private investigator, sent a letter through Helen. He explained that he had left the surveillance world behind and was now working in cybersecurity, helping businesses defend against the very kind of privacy violations he had once committed. He had donated to victims' rights organizations and was trying in whatever small ways he could to make amends. I know I can never undo the harm I caused you, he wrote. But your experience changed me. Seeing the human cost of what I treated as business woke me up. I am striving to be better than the person I was when I worked for Julian. Your courage inspired me to find my own. I did not respond. I kept the letter, not as a gesture of forgiveness, but as proof that even in the darkest moments, some people could reflect, grow, and choose a better path. Julian would never do that. His final prison letters to Vanessa, full of blame and venom, convinced him he was the victim of some grand conspiracy. But Owen had looked inward, faced himself honestly, and discovered the courage to change, something Julian could never understand. That mattered. November marked 1 full year since Julian's arrest, and I chose to mark it with quiet triumph. I hosted a small gathering at the beach house. Patricia, Helen, Teresa, Vanessa, and a handful of others who had stood by me through the storm. We dined on the deck as the sun dipped into the horizon, laughter mingling with the salty breeze, our conversation deliberately steering clear of the horrors of the past year. For the first time in months, This home felt like a place for joy, not fear. When the last guest departed, Vanessa stayed behind to help me tidy up. We worked side by side in companionable silence, rebuilding a sisterly bond Julian had tried so desperately to shatter. As we stacked dishes and folded napkins, she paused, eyes serious. "I need to tell you something," she said softly. I looked up. "What is it?" "I've been seeing a therapist, working through everything Julian did, and I realized something important. When he came after you, he was really coming after both of us. He wanted to make us turn on each other, to drive a wedge so deep we'd never recover. Isolation was part of his plan." I felt my stomach tighten. "I never hated you," she continued, voice trembling. "I was manipulated just like you were. For months, I feared you'd never forgive me, that I'd lost my sister forever because I'd trusted a con artist. But that fear, that divide, that's exactly what Julian wanted. Wounded, alone, helpless against him. He failed. Completely. We hugged, and with that embrace, the last traces of tension between us dissolved. Julian had tried to steal my property. He had tried to steal my family. He had failed at both. From that day forward, Vanessa and I were closer than we had been in years, bound by survival and mutual understanding. December brought news that Julian had gotten into a fight with another inmate, resulting in a 6-month loss of privileges. His parole board record was piling up with incidents, pushing his release date back a full year. He was digging his own hole deeper, one bad choice at a time. I felt no joy in his suffering, only relief. The predator was exactly where he belonged. Justice had worked. Not everyone was so fortunate. Many victims lacked resources, evidence, or support to fight back. I had been lucky, and I was learning not to take that for granted. The new year arrived, bright and purposeful. I expanded the gallery, taking over the adjacent storefront for larger installations. A second assistant joined the team, and I began representing artists across the region. Business grew beyond anything I had imagined 5 years ago when I first opened the doors. Julian had tried to destroy me because his own life was crumbling. Instead, his attacks had unearthed strengths I never knew I had, driving me to build something bigger, stronger, and more resilient than before. Vanessa flourished as well, earning a promotion to senior bookkeeper at her firm, her independence and confidence blooming in ways that made me proud. Vanessa had begun to rebuild her life, cautiously, deliberately. She started seeing someone new, a teacher named Gregory, kind, patient, and respectful. She moved slowly, still tending to the scars Julian had left behind. But she was finally steering her life on her own terms, not under someone else's control. In March, 2 years after Julian's first attack on my home, I stood on my deck as dawn stretched across the horizon. Pelicans swooped gracefully over the waves, which crashed rhythmically against the shore. The salt air filled my lungs, crisp and invigorating. Everything looked as it had before, unchanged. But I was not the same. Stronger, wiser, sharper, yet grounded in a confidence that only comes from surviving and prevailing. I had faced a predator, defended what was mine, and emerged victorious. My phone buzzed. Helen's name flashed across the screen. Final update. Julian's parole hearing denied. He will serve his full sentence plus extra time for behavioral violations, 8 years total. Thought you'd want to know. 8 years. By the time he would walk free, Vanessa and I would be completely different women. Our lives reshaped, matured, full of experiences he could never touch or influence. Julian would step into a world that had moved on without him, a broken man, stripped of the empire he had tried to build through lies and manipulation. I thought of everything I would accomplish in those 8 years, the relationships I would nurture, the art I would showcase, the gallery I would grow, the life I would fully embrace. Every day he spent behind bars was a day I spent free, safe, creating beauty and meaning. The revenge I had longed for had never needed to be dramatic or violent. It was far more satisfying, thriving while he faced the consequences of his own choices, flourishing while he floundered. Justice had not required me to act. It had arrived naturally, supported by those who stood beside me, sustained by my refusal to remain a victim. I lifted my coffee cup to the sunrise, a silent toast to survival, resilience, and the quiet power of living well. Julian had tried to take everything from me, and in the end, he had taken nothing but his own downfall. 8 years in a medium-security prison, repeated disciplinary actions for attempts to manipulate others, solitary confinement, a life dismantled by the weight of his own decisions. His real estate licenses permanently revoked in 3 states, leaving him without the empire he had imagined. And I had everything I needed. My home, my freedom, my life, and the knowledge that I could withstand whatever came next. The properties Julian had tried to claim through lies and deception were seized, liquidated, and the proceeds returned to the people he had defrauded. His once grandiose empire lay in ruins, his name now a cautionary tale whispered in Atlanta real estate circles, synonymous with greed, fraud, and betrayal. When he was finally released, it was not to freedom but to a halfway house, bound by strict probation conditions that forbade him from touching real estate, contacting any of his former victims, or owning property for a full decade. The man who had once dreamed of vast wealth and control was reduced to washing dishes in a small diner, his ambitions shriveled into the humbling rhythm of minimum wage life. Vanessa's divorce was finalized while he remained behind bars, and she received confirmation that Julian could never reach her again. The permanent restraining order against me meant that even the slightest misstep would return him to prison immediately. Every gamble he had made, every calculated attempt to steal my home, had backfired spectacularly. He had lost not only the property he coveted, but the life he had tried to build, day after day paying the price for underestimating a woman he thought was defenseless. And me? I remained in my Charleston Beach house, greeted each morning by the sun rising over the Atlantic, running a thriving gallery that showcased dozens of artists across the Southeast. The security cameras and alarm system stayed in place, but I slept without fear, my peace restored, my life intact. Occasionally, I think back to how close I came to losing everything. My home, my sanctuary, my sense of safety, and I feel a deep, unshakable gratitude for the life I fought to reclaim. Looking back on the journey, I realized the story was never truly about revenge. It was about resilience, about refusing to be broken, about standing firm when someone tried to strip me of my life, my dignity, my home, and discovering that I was far stronger, braver, and more capable than I, or anyone else, had ever imagined. That knowledge, that inner strength, was the truest victory of all. More valuable than any property. More enduring than any court order. The real treasure I gained was the certainty that no one, not even a predator like Julian, could ever take my life from me again.